Now today's video is going to be a slightly different one, actually a really different one, because we are experimenting with a tier list for the very first time. Now with the OnePlus 15 right around the corner, I'm sure that all of you are waiting for those reviews and comparisons, which will definitely come on our channel. But before that, I wanted to take a look at OnePlus's, famed past. Now I'm going to be looking at all the phones that OnePlus has launched till date until the OnePlus 13s, from the OnePlus One to the OnePlus 13s, and put them in a tier list. So we're going to have the S tier, which is the top tier. Very few phones are going to be there in the S tier. Then there's A, B, C, and then finally D. Now what all of these tiers actually mean from our perspective, we will show you on the screen right now. So you can pause and check that out. But let's get down to this very, very interesting video that we have planned for you. Alright, if you're watching me for the first time, I'm Ashad. This is Trakin Tech English, your destination for detailed, incisive tier lists. Now let's start with the phone that started it all, the OnePlus One. It was an iconic launch from OnePlus, so much so that they expected to sell about 50,000 units of the phone, but they ended up selling over 1 million. And obviously there were very good reasons for it. One of the reasons was the fact that you could get a Snapdragon 801 flagship SoC at that time for less than the price, much less than the price of the then flagship Galaxy S5. And this is the start of the term that was coined in our smartphone industry called the flagship killer. The OnePlus One was the embodiment of the flagship killer, and it was a fantastic phone. It had an iconic sandstone back which everybody loved. Now the phone was available in an invite-based system, and initially when they launched it, they didn't launch it in India, but eventually it did come to our country again, through the invite-based system. But yeah, everybody wanted one. I wanted one. It was that popular, and the one thing that sort of set the OnePlus One apart from the rest of the phones back then was the fact that it actually ran CyanogenMod out of the box. The geek community was just crazy about CyanogenMod back then. Unfortunately, all of that changed with the next phone. I'll come to that in a bit, but the OnePlus One definitely goes in S tier for me. This is an S tier phone, guys. Yes, we're starting off really strong. Now, since the OnePlus One was a huge success, everybody expected OnePlus to follow up with yet another banger. But the OnePlus 2 was kind of disappointing. Actually, I would say the OnePlus 2 goes into D tier for me. Now, the reason for that was the price went up, which is all right. It was available for anywhere between 24 to 29,000 rupees. Now, of course, the price did go up for the phone, but it didn't bring a lot of upgrades at that time. People were expecting like a huge, change with the OnePlus 2. More importantly, they all wanted the, invite system gone, but that didn't go. You still had to buy using the invite system, but through Amazon. Now, there were two variants of the phone that were launched. I think a 3GB variant and a 4GB variant of the phone. And the 4GB variant had 64GB storage only. A lot of people actually expected it to come with 128GB, but that didn't happen. And features like NFC were still missing, fast charging wasn't there, cameras were still pretty average. So about that 25,000 rupees price range or the price bump that happened, the OnePlus 2 didn't bring too much to the table. That said, the OnePlus 2 did do one thing very, very iconic, and that is it introduced the alert slider for the very first time on a OnePlus phone. So does that mean that this goes in C tier? No, this still is in D tier for me. Now the next phone, while it wasn't very popular, was one phone that I enjoyed using it at that time. It was the OnePlus X. It was discontinued immediately after it was launched. This was the only OnePlus X phone that was ever launched. It was a unique phone. It looked a lot like the Nexus because it had a glass back, and at that time, about that 17,000 rupee price range, you could get like the Moto G series phones, but you would get only plastic with them. You'd never got glass. So glass was like a premium material that OnePlus used with the OnePlus X, and it had the same Snapdragon 801 processor that was used by the OnePlus One, which meant that it was a very powerful phone, at least for that price. So OnePlus was always known for offering great performance for the price. So that's what the OnePlus X also did. However, it was a smaller phone, had a smaller battery, so those were some of the concerns that a lot of people had. And like the OnePlus 2, it also had the alert slider, the iconic alert slider, which is fantastic. Even at that time, it was reviewed really well, and we all expected it to take off and become like a super hit because it was available for a very good price. However, that wasn't really what happened, unfortunately. But still, I think it's a great phone, and I would say I'd put it in B tier. Next up, we have the OnePlus 3. Now, this was proper back to form for OnePlus, right? I mean, for 27,999, it brought a whole slew of features that a lot of people were asking for. The first thing is that it had the Snapdragon 820, which was a very good chipset, unlike the Snapdragon 810 in the OnePlus 2, which was a heating mess, by the way. Along with that, it also got 6GB of RAM, and for the very first time, dash charge was introduced. And you know what the charging speed was at that time for dash charge? 20 watts. Now it's really slow, but yeah, I mean, back then, very fast. and it had a beautiful metal design, all right? I mean, people just loved it. I loved reviewing it as well. And for 28,000 rupees, it felt like a very, very premium phone. And of course, if you had to buy a Snapdragon 820 based phone, they would all be far more expensive, but OnePlus managed to undercut the costs, keep it at 30,000 rupees, 28,000 rupees in India. Fantastic phone for that price. It also fixed a couple of problems. This phone had NFC, and more importantly, you now did not need an invite system to buy a OnePlus phone. Finally. This one is not S tier, but definitely A tier for me. The next phone, the OnePlus 3T, again, for me is definitely A tier. Despite the fact that it only made minor changes over the OnePlus 3, it had the same design, but it had some very crucial upgrades and fixes that was, needed for the OnePlus 3. Basically, it had an upgraded Snapdragon 821 and a larger battery, which was a concern with the OnePlus 3. The battery was 3000 mAh. With the OnePlus 3T, you got a 3400 mAh battery. And now you also got 128 GB of storage, which is fantastic for under 30,000 rupees at that time. Obviously, now 128 GB is like really low, but yeah, I mean, at that time, it was awesome. By the way, this is the first time that OnePlus actually introduced the T lineup within its flagship launches, which meant that every year it would launch one phone, basically like the, number series, basically the OnePlus 3, and then the 3T after that, then the 5 and the 5T, the 6 and the 6T happened. Obviously, I'll come to all of that, but yeah, this was the first year that happened. Now talking about year 2017, where we had the OnePlus 5 and the 5T. Now, starting off with the OnePlus 5, while it did bring a whole slate of new upgrades, there were fundamental problems with it, which makes me want to put it in the B tier instead of the A tier. A lot of phones are in the A tier, but the OnePlus 5 is not. Now, this phone had a Snapdragon 835, 8 GB of RAM, which meant that performance was definitely not going to be a problem, right? But it did look a lot like the iPhone 6, so it drew a lot of criticism for looking like the iPhone, which was a fundamental problem. It also had a dual camera system, which is nice, so which basically meant that you got a primary and a telephoto, a 1.6x optical zoom, by the way. And OnePlus worked with DxO to, improve the camera performance. However, the camera was still not that great, honestly, if you ask me. And this phone was infamous for one more reason. If you guys remember, the jelly scrolling effect. And the main reason the jelly scrolling effect was happening was because the display was inverted for internal circuitry reasons, and that caused jelly scrolling. Major scandal at that time, I must say, for OnePlus. So yeah, everybody was waiting for the second phone of 2017, the OnePlus 5T, and it did fix a lot of the OnePlus 5's problem. And therefore, the OnePlus 5T actually, for me, goes into A tier. Now, for the same price as the OnePlus 5, the OnePlus 5T did bring a lot of useful upgrades. The first thing that it did is that it reduced the bezel sizes at the top and the bottom, which meant that you actually got more screen estate. At that time, that was huge. And just to make that happen, the front-mounted home button kind of fingerprint scanner that moved to the rear, which was again very cool at that time. Very fast fingerprint scanner as well is what OnePlus was using. And then there were a couple of other things that OnePlus introduced. The face unlock was like a huge thing at that time. Like OnePlus 5T had face unlock, but obviously, I mean, nobody cared about it too much. iPhone's face unlock is still the most iconic one, obviously. And the other thing is that for the very first time, OnePlus did some internal changes to ensure that you could run parallel apps or two parallel apps at the same time without, taxing the system resources, which was great. Now, since the OnePlus 5T fixed all of the OnePlus 5's problem, I put it in the A tier. I think that makes sense, right? Alright, now we have a lot of phones to go through, but if you've liked the video until now, it takes a lot of effort to do this and the kind of research that goes into it. So if you do hit that subscribe button, we'd be happy. The entire team would be happy, for sure. Alright, the next up is the OnePlus 6. As iconic as this phone was, it was also very controversial. And the main reason for that is that the OnePlus 6 introduced the boat notch for the very first time. And when everybody saw it, they're like, oh my God, that doesn't look so great. And that's when Carl Payne famously told The Verge that people need to learn to love it. And immediately later, that boat notch would go away and it would become a water drop notch in the next edition of the phone. But yeah, I'll come to that in a bit. Also, the OnePlus 6 was the first time that OnePlus used an all-glass design, which meant that you had a glass back and a glass front as well. And everybody expected it to actually come with support for wireless charging, but that didn't happen until the OnePlus 8 Pro. So it was just glass for the sake of glass, by the way. Looked good, no doubt, but no added functionality. Also, the OnePlus 6 was one of the first Android phones outside of the Pixel to get into the beta program, by the way. Now, despite being so controversial, it managed to sell over 1 million units in the month of its launch. So yeah, I mean, it was a popular phone, but for me, it's not an A tier phone. it's a B tier phone. Now with the OnePlus 6T, everybody expected OnePlus to like fix a lot of the problems that the OnePlus 6 had. The one thing that they did, of course, is that they removed the boat notch and made it a water drop notch, which meant that you got more screen estate, which is nice. And this is the first time that we got an optical in-display fingerprint scanner with the OnePlus 6T. But controversially, you got the scanner, but you lost the headphone jack for the very first time on a OnePlus 4. I mean, that was the start of the trend anyway, and the headphone jack was going away, which happened with the OnePlus 6T as well. So disappointing. But yeah, the optical in-display fingerprint scanner, obviously till today, like the in-display fingerprint scanner is something that a lot of brands use, including OnePlus. But at that time, the optical in-display fingerprint scanner on the OnePlus 6T was not very fast. It was the first time they implemented it, so it's all right. Now it had the same Snapdragon 845 that the OnePlus 6 had. It had 6GB of RAM, all of that. But rest of the features, not too many upgrades out there. And yeah, I mean, it was really popular as well. But I don't think that it deserves to be in A tier either, because it was also, the price had gone up slightly, and now we're talking about, when the OnePlus One came out, it was 22,000 rupees. Then it slightly went up, it went up to 28, 30, and now we're talking like close to 40,000 rupees. It was about 38,000 rupees when the OnePlus 6T launched. Interestingly, the OnePlus 6T had a McLaren edition of the phone. I'm not going to be talking about limited editions of the OnePlus phones out here, because those were all pretty cool, by the way. I wish that OnePlus still continued to make some great limited edition phones. I think the last one I remember is that Genshin Impact edition that they made. But yeah, I mean, what are all the limited editions that you can think of? There was one specific limited edition phone that was launched before the McLaren edition, and that was with the OnePlus 5T. What was it? Let me know in the comments. Alright, now we are in 2019, and OnePlus launched 4 phones this year. The OnePlus 7, the OnePlus 7 Pro, the OnePlus 7T, and the OnePlus 7T Pro. I remember making videos on all of these phones and garnering a lot of views, obviously because OnePlus was at its peak of its fandom. People were just crazy about OnePlus 4. Now before I talk about the OnePlus 7, let me talk about the OnePlus 7 Pro instead, primarily because the OnePlus 7, while it was very, very important, the OnePlus 7 Pro was the first phone that, actually people could buy. The OnePlus 7 people could buy later. They did announce it, but they could buy it later. Now with the OnePlus 7 Pro, now this phone was iconic. This phone was insane. This is proper S tier for me. This is the second phone after the OnePlus One that goes into the S tier. And the reason for that was the OnePlus 7 Pro was the first time OnePlus introduced a Pro phone, right? And the prices obviously were jacked up. Now you could buy the phone at about 48,000 rupees, 50,000 rupees. I can't remember it all at the top of my head. But yeah, I mean, it did bring a whole host of features though. This is the first time that OnePlus actually introduced a completely curved display, and not just a curved panel, it actually had a pop-out camera. I really wish that pop-up cameras make a comeback, but then again, the phones would become thicker, heavier, something that people don't want anymore. But still, it was great for that time, fantastic technology, and which meant that you got like a full screen display with absolutely nothing to disrupt it. No water drop notch, no boat notch. From a boat notch to a water drop notch to absolutely nothing. It was just crazy, right? Now this phone had a Snapdragon 855. It had a charging speed of 30 watt. At that time, it was really fast. And yeah, I completely forgot about the fact that it was the first phone that OnePlus launched with a 90 Hz QHD plus Super AMOLED panel. The display was truly top class at that time, and I still know a lot of people who are using or rocking the OnePlus 7 Pro, because until then Oxygen OS was still there, right? I mean, after the initial Cyanogen mod, with the OnePlus One, it all moved to Oxygen OS. Oxygen OS was one of the reasons why people are buying these phones, and the OnePlus 7 Pro was the perfect vehicle or a perfect, premium flagship phone for that. It also introduced UFS 3.0 storage. Up to 12 GB of RAM was available that time itself. Right now 12 GB is standard across phones, but in 2019 itself, OnePlus introduced 12 GB of RAM. So yeah, the OnePlus 7 Pro was an iconic phone, if you ask me. Absolute class phone. Oh, I completely forgot to mention that the OnePlus 7 Pro also had a proper triple camera setup with a telephoto, with an optical camera. Now, since this OnePlus 7 Pro had gone up in cost, the OnePlus 7 was the more affordable variant. In fact, it was more affordable than the OnePlus 6T. And which is why the OnePlus 7 was very, very popular, because it had the same Snapdragon 855 chipset, UFS 3.0 storage that was introduced with the OnePlus 7 Pro, which meant that performance and of course the Oxygen OS experience was going to be fantastic. It was like the perfect vehicle for anybody who wanted to experience Oxygen OS, wanted the best performance, but didn't want to pay 50,000 rupees for the OnePlus 7 Pro. However, there were a few things that it couldn't do. For example, it didn't have a high refresh rate display. It still had a large optic AMOLED display, 6.41 inch, and it had HDR10 support too, but it was a 60 Hz panel. Of course, it also had stereo speakers, which was great, but it only had like a single usable camera on the rear, a 48 megapixel camera with optical image stabilization. So overall, if you ask me, like, the OnePlus 7 did have a lot of compromises compared to the OnePlus 7 Pro, but it was still an iconic phone. And I would say that I would put it in the A tier. If there was a tier between the A and the S, like an A plus or something, then I would put the OnePlus 70 in that tier, but still OnePlus 70 goes into the A tier for me as well. Again, but it's slightly better than the OnePlus 7. In fact, a whole lot better than the OnePlus 7. It fixed a lot of the OnePlus 7's problems. First thing is that, you've got a flat display with 90 Hz OLED now, so it matched the feature of the OnePlus 7 Pro. And apart from that, you also got 30-watt charging speed. It had an iconic design, by the way. A lot of people didn't like it. It had a circular camera layout. I remember this deco at the rear, but I had loved it at that time when I reviewed it. And of course, you did get a performance bump, slight performance bump with the Snapdragon 855 Plus and 8GB RAM as well. So yeah, OnePlus 70 great phone. 70 Pro on the other hand was not the same S tier as the 7 Pro because it was a very minor refresh. All it brought was the Snapdragon 855 Plus and a very tiny battery upgrade. I don't think that it should go in A tier either. I think it should go in B tier. It was like a very minor upgrade, but OnePlus asked a lot of money more for it. So yeah, so I would say that it could have been better. Alright, now moving on to 2020, the year of COVID. I remember reviewing OnePlus 8 series of phones during COVID, the OnePlus 8, the 8 Pro and the 8T. Yeah, there was no 8T Pro this year. And also, this was, I think, the time when OnePlus had a little bit of a graph going down. Like, after the great OnePlus 7 phones, everybody was expecting like great things with the OnePlus 8 series, but that necessarily didn't happen. And with the OnePlus 8 series, gone was the pop-out module as well, camera module, selfie camera module as well. So yeah, so OnePlus 8 had Snapdragon 865. Let's start with the OnePlus 8. It also had, of course, 5G. The OnePlus 7T Pro was the first one, I think, to come with 5G rollout, but the 8 was like the more commercially available one with 5G with Snapdragon 865. You also got a 90 Hz AMOLED display. Again, not a whole lot that changed. It was sleeker, it was much better looking. It had a triple camera setup, but not like a telephoto. It did have a primary and an ultra wide. And apart from that, it also had the 30-watt fast charging speed, 4300 mAh battery, and Oxygen OS. So it was a good phone, but not a great phone. It goes in B tier for me. But the 8 Pro was a good phone, probably between good and great. I would say that it goes in the A tier again. The good thing about the 8 Pro is that it's the first time that OnePlus actually introduced IP68 rating and wireless charging at really fast speeds at 30-watt warp charge speeds. So that was very interesting. And again, the price was slightly higher again compared to the OnePlus 7T Pro. Now it was 55,000 rupees for the OnePlus 8 Pro, so the prices were going up. But this phone was really powerful. Snapdragon 865, 120 Hz AMOLED display, by the way. For the very first time, they introduced 120 Hz as well on the 8 Pro. However, the OnePlus 8 Pro was, again, not the S tier for me. The 7 Pro set like a benchmark, but the 7T Pro and the 8 Pro couldn't continue that. Now talking about the OnePlus 8T, again, the 8T was a good upgrade over the OnePlus 8, I would say. This phone also goes in A tier for me. Now this phone had a 120 Hz AMOLED display up from the 90 Hz on the OnePlus 8. You also got 65-watt charging for the very first time, which was an introduction for faster charging speeds. By now though, I mean, 65-watt has become standard, not just on OnePlus phone, on most other phones. And I mean, OnePlus is doing faster speeds now. And the price was only slightly higher, like about 42,999, which is basically like 1,000 rupees more than the OnePlus 8. While that was great, it still didn't have the wireless charging or the IP rating that, the OnePlus 8 Pro introduced. Alright, now we are moving to 2021, where the first time OnePlus announced its partnership with the camera brand Hasselblad. And now you guys know that with the OnePlus 15, the Hasselblad partnership is no more. It continues with Oppo, but not with OnePlus. But yeah, I mean, with the OnePlus 9, the Hasselblad partnership was introduced. So everybody was expecting the camera performance to be like insane, but it wasn't. Now with the OnePlus 9, you got a Snapdragon 888 processor. It also had like the 6.55-inch fluid AMOLED display with 120 Hz refresh rate, which is great. And for the cameras, you had a 48MP primary camera and a 50MP ultra-wide-angle camera, which was actually a pretty good ultra-wide-angle camera, if you ask me. And the 4500 mAh battery, 65-watt warp charging speeds. And in certain regions, the OnePlus 8 did come with wireless charging 15-watt, but not in India for sure. Again, no IP rating in India, but IP68 was available, I think, for certain T-Mobile OnePlus 9 phones. And with the OnePlus 9 series, I think OnePlus also introduced the vapor cooling chamber, and it was required actually, primarily because the OnePlus 9 came with Snapdragon 888, and the 888 was a heating monster. So that was a fundamental problem that the OnePlus 9 also had to face, including the OnePlus 9 Pro 2. So yeah, so the OnePlus 9, I don't think it was a great phone, if you ask me, because the price had gone up to 50,000 rupees. It's pretty expensive for that time, and I would say that it goes in C tier. Didn't offer that kind of value for me. Now let's talk about the OnePlus 9 Pro. Now the 9 Pro was again a huge step up in terms of pricing, and it reached 65,000 rupees. Now, obviously, with the Hasselblad branding and everything, the price had to go up. This is something that everybody expected, but this was the most expensive OnePlus phone ever. Even today, OnePlus phones are generally available for anywhere between 65 to 70,000 rupees. So that's the, like, OnePlus phones have not gone beyond the 70,000 rupees price range, right? So yeah, the OnePlus 9 Pro back then set the benchmark for OnePlus, the high pricing for Pro phones. But with that pricing, you did get a 120Hz QHD Plus LTPO display, which is great. You also got 50-watt wireless charging speeds, which is superb, but you had to buy the charger separately. And of course, with the Hasselblad branding, you did get a very good camera setup, a 48 megapixel main camera, 48 megapixel ultra wide, 8 megapixel, 77mm 3.3x telephoto camera. The Hasselblad was just a name tacked on to the phone and really didn't bring much to the camera experience. Not that the cameras were bad, but obviously they were not competent with other smartphones out there. Now by this time, since the OnePlus Nord series had become really popular and people were buying those phones, and OnePlus was concentrating on that, like getting a good experience at the 20 to 30,000 rupees price range, the flagship experience or the flagship phones had started deteriorating in terms of what people were expecting from it. So from launching like up to 4 OnePlus flagship phones back in 2019 with the OnePlus 7 series, it went down to 3 with the OnePlus 8 series, 2 with the OnePlus 9 series, and again 2 with the OnePlus 10 series. But it was a very weird OnePlus 10 series if you ask me, because the OnePlus 10 never came, but the OnePlus 10 Pro did. 10 Pro was the first phone that OnePlus launched, a flagship phone, after like the launch of the OnePlus 9 Pro. So with this, you got the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 and the price had gone up to 67,000 rupees. Again, the Hasselblad partnership was definitely there, and it was an incremental upgrade over the OnePlus 9 Pro if you ask me. It had a larger 6.7-inch LTPO2 fluid AMOLED display with 120Hz refresh rate, and it had a large 5000 mAh battery, 80-watt wired charging speeds, 50-watt wireless charging continued. And the main thing that OnePlus was pushing again and again was the Hasselblad partnership. But again, 10 Pro was, I don't know if we should, the Hasselblad partnership was that great to sort of just sell the phone without too many upgrades. I'd say I put it in C tier, man. It doesn't deserve anything better than a C tier for the OnePlus 10 Pro. After the OnePlus 10 Pro, the OnePlus 10T launched. Now, the 10T was like a weird little launch, primarily because everybody expected like the 10T Pro to come, but that didn't happen. Anyway, this had a Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, and this was the first time that OnePlus introduced 150-watt charging speeds. It was like the vessel to actually showcase that kind of fast charging speeds, but it had a plastic back, guys. Now, while 150-watt charging speed was really, really fast and like a really good showcase, it never took shape of becoming commercial, because every brand that did like faster than 120 watts, they all came back down to either 120 or 100 or 80. It also had a cheaper build quality. It had a plastic frame. It didn't have wireless charging. And this was the first time that OnePlus removed the physical alert slider. This phone was actually not that great. It goes into D tier phone. Now moving on to the OnePlus 11 series. Now with the OnePlus 11 series, we see a glimpse of what OnePlus has today, because with the flagship lineup basically, because the Pro doesn't exist anymore. So the 10 Pro was the last Pro phone that ever that OnePlus ever launched. You had the OnePlus 11 and the OnePlus 11R, then the OnePlus 12 and the 12R happened, and then the OnePlus 13 and the 13R happened, and of course 13S also happened, but we'll come to that in a bit. But yeah, with the OnePlus 11, what you got was a back to form for OnePlus. Now this is again an A-tier phone for me. Now while the price did go up, it was about 57,000 rupees for a base flagship, it did bring a whole lot more to the table, because it didn't have a Pro in the name, but it did have Pro in terms of features. Because it had a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, of course, up to 16 GB of RAM was possible, and a large 5000 mAh battery as well. The weird thing about the OnePlus 11 was, and you guys will remember this is because it was pretty recent, is that it had a 120 GB storage with UFS 3.1 speeds, but UFS 4.0 was available for 256 GB and above. It also did support Dolby Vision for the very first time on the display. Now while the OnePlus 11 had only IP64 rating, no wireless charging, the one good thing about this phone was this was the very first time that OnePlus actually promised 4 years of OS updates and 5 years of security updates. For me, it's still A tier. It was like a comeback for OnePlus. This was also the year OnePlus introduced the R lineup. Now this was supposed to be a more affordable version of the OnePlus flagship phone, and using the previous year flagship chipset, because the OnePlus 11 came with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, but the 11R came with the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1. Now with the 11R, you also got 100-watt charging speed, a 1.5K AMOLED display, and all of this was available for a very good price of 40,000 rupees. The 11R was actually a very, very popular phone when it launched, and I would say even this one goes in the A tier for me. Okay, now coming to the OnePlus 12, I think a lot of users really loved the OnePlus 12, right? Because I remember the master mode being introduced for the very first time. The Hasselblad partnership has finally started providing results that people were enjoying, right? And the design was so good that people really, really love it even today. Again, a curved display, a curved back, curved front. Yeah, I mean, these were the last of the OnePlus phones to come with those curved screens as well. You did get a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, a 2K LTPO AMOLED display, 5400 mAh battery, and it was 65K at launch, which is fine because it did get a very good camera setup, a 50MP primary, 64MP periscope telephoto, and a 48 megapixel ultra wide angle camera as well. Again, it had a large 5400 mAh battery, 100 watt charging speeds, and 50 watt wireless as well. Even today, a lot of people continue to use the OnePlus 12 and refuse to let it go. It's that good. In fact, the OnePlus 12R again came with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. So the OnePlus 12 goes in A tier for me, and the 12R goes in B tier for me. By the way, I'm not talking in detail about the 12R primarily because we already have a video. Go check it out. Link should pop up right now. Now let me talk about one phone that I think OnePlus should have continued making but didn't. Like, unlike the OnePlus X, because OnePlus X was, I mean, it wasn't very popular. People didn't buy it and stuff like that. I'm guessing that the OnePlus Open, which is the phone that I'm talking about, wasn't very popular. People didn't buy it, and that is why, OnePlus had to drop it. And Oppo continues to make the foldable phone. But the OnePlus Open was a fantastic foldable phone. Like, I mean, at that time, amongst foldables, it was the best foldable phone out there. Sathik wrote the script for this one and he gave it like an A tier, but I would say it is S tier. It is legit S tier. Like, even today, I love using that phone. Of course, it had the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. It also had 16GB of RAM and 512GB or 1TB of storage. Of course, it's a very expensive phone when it launched, but it was such a good book style foldable with very good quality, hinge, and the experience of using it was so good. And also because Oxygen OS on that tablet experience was really, really good. But unfortunately, the OnePlus Open lineup doesn't exist anymore, at least for now. I hope that OnePlus is watching this video and they would want to resurrect the OnePlus Open. Fingers crossed. Now, the rest of the phones is the OnePlus 13 lineup. I have spoken extensively recently about it, so I'm not gonna, explain it in detail. You guys probably are fresh with that information of what the OnePlus 13 is, what the OnePlus 13R brings to the table, and what the OnePlus 13S brings to the table. So, the 13 is clearly an A tier phone for me. The 13R, I would say, is a B tier phone for me. Very popular, very good, but not too many upgrades. Like, I mean, by now you know exactly what to get, right? What to expect. The 13S again would be a B tier phone for me, primarily because it's a very good compact flagship, no nonsense flagship, but it would have been an A tier if the Vivo X200 FE did not exist. Because the X200 FE does come with a telephoto, and now it will come with Origin OS as well, which makes it a much better consideration compared to the OnePlus 13S. Oh my god, this video was really long, but I don't know, I just felt like it was fun to talk about all the OnePlus phones that have existed till date. Now, if we had to make something similar for Samsung phones or Xiaomi phones or Vivo phones or Oppo phones, let me know in the comments. We'll definitely try to make that for you. I really liked doing this tier list, and I hope that you agree with the tier list as well, or if you have your own version of which tier a certain phone should be in, let us know that also in the comments. I'd love to know your take on this. And yeah, that's it from me for this one. I need a glass of water, maybe a Diet Coke. See you guys in the next one. Until then, keep tracking and stay safe.